Hi, I'm Joe. I'm a compulsive overeater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Gray Sheet. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. This is such a sacred time of year for me and my abstinence. My first abstinent meal and my first 7.5 years of abstinence, I started on July 2nd, 2001. It was after attending meetings for about a month in the Cambridge community and going back and forth and just being awestruck by what I'd heard there. And finally, on July 2nd, it was lunchtime, and I was at a Saturday meeting, and I let the blonde girl with the skinny arms, where she was showing her arms, she took me in the back of the room, and I said, I really want to try this food plan. I'd gone to 4 meetings, and she said, okay. And she sat down and she took out a gray sheet and she took out all the condiments, wrote them all down the sides of the paper, and interpreted every single protein and just spent time with me. And then she said, okay, now you need to go buy a scale. You need to go throw out all the food in your house. Here's how you count ingredients. This is what you do, the whole thing. And so my first abstinent day, I counted as July 2nd of 2001. And I just want to tell a little bit about what got me here. I was extremely, extremely inspired by another qualifier the other day and the honesty that person told their story. So I'm going to tell my story with some honesty today and just say that, I was subsisting as a morbidly obese person. I was a person that did not believe that I was worthy of love. I did not believe that anybody would ever love me. I did not believe that I would ever have financial security or success of any kind. I didn't aspire to be much. I didn't trust myself to do much. And even though, as a super fat person, I made it through elementary school and high school and college and law school and the bar exam and all the things, my life brought me to a place where I was woefully underemployed, living in an apartment where the ceiling was falling down in the back room. It had one pilot light to light the stove in the front of the place. It was a rent control apartment from good Italian girls that rented to me at a very low price in Boston, actually Cambridge. And I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had a boyfriend that was an alcoholic that used to steal money directly out of my bank account. He somehow got a PIN number. And he was stealing money and buying me presents from the money that he stole from me. And, I was the kind of girl that had a lot of unresolved trauma, a lot of unresolved anger. I threw all this stuff out the 3rd-floor window into the alley, which my friends always laugh about to this day, because they're like, oh, girl, you're the kind of girl that comes and throws the shit out the 3rd-floor window, like it was just kind of a joke between all of us. But, the back room of my apartment was completely full of shit, including all of my mother's stuff and unopened mail, piles and piles of unopened mail. And, I was a lawyer at the time. Like, I was somewhat employed, but kind of not employed. And, for years before that, I'm kind of selling my story backwards, but that's okay. For the years before that, my mother was dying of cancer, and my dad had died when I was 4.5, and he abandoned me when he died, whether or not he meant to or not, he did. And unfortunately, because I was a rainbow baby, the baby that died before I was born, my mother was still yearning for that little boy, and she got pregnant almost immediate with me. So my mom never bonded with me. It was my dad, and he was my primary caretaker. So at 4.5, I lost my primary caretaker, and my mother was heavily pregnant with the last of 8 children. So she was a single mom. She had that last baby, and I was, who the hell knows where I was. I lost my mom because she had a brand new baby to take care of. Plus, she went through a huge depression because my dad died of a heart attack at 45, by the way, massively overweight. And, and I got lost in the shuffle, and that's just what happened. So what happened to me but what happened to me as a young child, thank you, oh my God, is that I just ate and I ate and I ate and I ate. And I got taller and taller because I'm a very big person. I'm like 6 feet in heels, like I'm a big person. And so by like sixth grade, I kind of stopped growing that much. I was like, I'm 5'10" now. So whatever I was in sixth grade, but the growth could no longer keep up with the width. And I ended up putting on 100 pounds between seventh and eighth grade. 100 pounds because my mother had found, this man that she decided to marry. And I felt like I was losing my mom along with my dad, even though my mom was no great shakes. Let me just say that. So she tried. She's wonderful. I forgive her everything. Just so you know, I've done a ton of therapy. Like I definitely feel like my mom and we are like good now, but at the time, she was dating this guy and he replaced all of her children. So I was abandoned again and I just ate and ate and ate and ate. If you fast forward, I lost the same 60 pounds every 4 years between the ages of maybe I was 12 years old to the time I got in Gray Sheet. When I walked in the door, I was 335 pounds. I was a size 30, which they don't even have at Lane Bryant, by the way. You had to go to the Avenue to get the size 30 jeans that I was wearing. And I had broken bones in the bottom of my feet. I had bone spurs. I could barely walk. And my body, I had pulled on these onesie kind of things. Like I pulled them up over my shoulders and I tied them around and the knots would dig in the sides of my shoulders and underneath my crotch, the little eyelet hooks would dig into my crotch when I walked. But it was like a swimsuit that I wore all the time. And my organs were crushed, So when my mom was dying of cancer during the time that I graduated from law school and got my first job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I was driving back and forth to Vermont and I buried her when I was 20. I was 27. She died on Memorial Day with a double rainbow in the sky. And she died. And 2 years before she died, she stopped eating sugar, flour, and grains. And my mother opened the door to the belief that one could eat foods that were, not sugar, flours, and grains. For whatever reason, she thought, she believed that sugar caused cancer. And she did this alternative thing. So she did this alternative thing. And I watched her do that. And I saw her go into a normal sized body. So when I buried her, we all buried her. The day after her funeral, I went to my sister's wedding in Vermont. Last time I was completely bombed, totally like sugar, alcohol, everything. I drove back to Boston and my neighbor said, hey, this person does this thing with food. You might want to come and check it out on a Saturday morning. And so I got in the car and I went and I checked it out. I want to say a couple of really important things before my time is up. It feels like I could just talk forever about the Gray Sheet, but I'm not going to do that. So a couple of really important things. When I went to that Cambridge meeting on Saturday morning, I learned that this is a disease, that I'm not lazy, that that I don't lack willpower, that I'm not a piece of shit, which is how I felt. I wasn't useless. I wasn't hopeless, all these things. It was like, well, I was hopeless, but I wasn't like a deficient human being because I couldn't lose weight. They explained to me that I had an allergy, and the allergy comes in the form of man-made sugars and carbohydrates that when I eat them, I just want to keep eating them and eating them and eating them. And they explained that my body was like a still, that just like an alcoholic, if you put the alcohol in the body wants more. It's just like those sugars and grains, I put them in my body and I want to eat more. And that's a chemical, dopamine, brain, chemistry, whatever the hell it is, that's the problem, is the addiction, because the addiction made me feel better for a minute or like 30 seconds. And then after that, it was like, I just could not stop eating, could not stop eating, could not stop eating. So they explained all that to me. They explained that it's a two-pronged approach, the Gray Sheet. Thank you, Stacy. The two-pronged approach is the amounts and what you're eating. So quality and quantity, that's the thing. That's why those two things have to be, because you look at other food plans and it's like, well, you can be optional about the weighing, or you can be optional about the grains. This is no grains, no exception, 3 meals a day. That's why it works. That's why it works for people for years and years and years and years. Okay, the hope part. So, I weighed and measured my food with completely blind faith for a really long time. I did no work on myself because my body was so stretched beyond imagination. The only thing I could do at the time that I was 27 years old is breathe, stay employed, stay vertical, weigh and measure my food, and like make it as delicious as I could and try to afford it, which was really, really hard. I was on the train back and forth. I was at Haymarket. I was at Seconds, eating out of the Seconds bins, whatever. I just did everything, absolutely everything I could to stay abstinent. It's all I did, because for me, when I got abstinent, I was unrecognizable to the person that you would meet today. I was a person that really wanted to die, that prayed to die, that wanted to die overnight, did not want to wake up. Like, I wasn't actively suicidal, but I certainly was like, please don't make me live another day in this body. I hated my life. I hated everything about my life. So the only thing I did was I just tried to stick and stay. Went to a lot of meetings, talked to a lot of people, had a great sponsor, really worked my ass off, and that's what I did. And then I did 5 years of therapy on my body, and I had surgery and everything else. And I was so young. And by the time I was like 30, 32, I was like, the world is my oyster, bitches. Like, I was like, I felt amazing. And I jumped out of airplanes and I did triathlons and I, whitewater rafted and I hiked through the woods and I did 5 days in a backpack and whatever, Appalachian Trail pieces and whatever. I did a lot of stuff, danced every dance, went out with every boy that asked me. Like, I was like, that was my life for a long period of time. And I did not address the people stuff. I did not address the people stuff, which led to my relapse in 2008. I will tell you the things I have done to stay abstinent, just so you all feel like, maybe you could be on the same path. The only reason why I could do any of this stuff is because I put down the food. So I'll start with program stuff. I addressed other issues in other programs, 12-step programs, AWOLs, how to listen to God, meditation. I've done an exorcism. I've done a past life regression. I've done acupuncture. I've done trauma therapy. I've done brain mapping. I've done, everything that somebody has an ACE score, adverse childhood experience, if you know what that is. My ACE score is a 7, and I don't need to get into all of that story, but it's a 7. It's the same as Oprah Winfrey. So from my perspective, it's like the fact that I am employed very well now, like after all this abstinent time and all these moments of learning about myself, about how to be a kind person, about how to work with other people, how to not be a people aggravator, how to not work out on my shit and people at work. Like I run a whole entire team now, like I had a responsible job where whatever, I was living in an apartment where my ceiling was falling down, and now I own, not that this is like a money thing, whatever, but I own a colonial in the country and I have 2 dogs and a gorgeous husband. And I lasted for 10 years in a step parenting relationship with this daughter that hated me because she had an ungrieved dead mother. And when I came around, the last thing she wanted was a female in her life. She did not, thank you. She did not want me in her life. And I lasted through that. I did not eat through all that crying, all that pain. I just didn't eat. And that's the thing, like for me, it's like today my life is amazing. Like I run my dogs, I garden in the garden, I'm a friend at the library, I sit in the library board, I do all these fun things in program, I'm sponsored, I go to meetings, I pay attention, I do my best, and I might decide to change my career in the next 2 years. That's my goal, is to actually leave my career and do something totally different, which I've really wanted to do. And financially, I can do that, and there's other choices that I'm able to make. The last thing I'll just say, thank you so much, Stacy, for timing me, is that it doesn't matter. If you go to bed abstinent tonight, you're 100% a success. You do not have to do anything else today. You have my permission. If you don't believe this program works, believe that I believe it works. The other thing is that, you know, the community is a huge, huge part of why we get to stay abstinent today. And our higher power is a huge part of that too, whatever that is to you. So, you know, again, if I had ever met myself back then, I wouldn't even be, it's not even close. Like my life is unrecognizable to that person that I was. And I've forgiven her everything. So that's a beautiful thing too, after all these years. So, thanks so much. Thanks for listening.